taking that role, and he's reaching out, learning, meeting people and all that stuff at the different schools. But we have such a difficult time because a lot of times the high schools won't allow us to do that, especially public schools. They won't allow us to see those grades. Only the parents can. So I don't know if we have to develop some kind of system to go through the parents to get there. Cash is easy. I just call Hall and Hall's easy. Bishop Kelly's somewhat. I mean, it's more of a, and to their, I mean, they see it as, well, they're not San Miguel kids anymore. They're Bishop Kelly kids. And I get it, I understand. But it's still, like, even that way, we're going to have to somehow go through the parent, I suppose. But anyway, there might be ideas that people can talk about that could give us some ways to do a little better tracking.
And I think tracking really comes back to the central question, which is, how do you measure whether or not San Miguel has been successful? Is it purely how they perform on the Terra Nova test? Is that the measure of what student success looks like? Is it graduating 8th grade? Is that what student success what are you really trying to do? And I think that carries us into our, obviously that's the mission. Does the mission of San Miguel as it is, and of course, I'll read it out loud as soon as I find the piece of paper that I had it on, oh my goodness, I keep clicking on the wrong thing. I want to make sure I read it word for word now. Actually, I'm going to let somebody else do that. You don't need me to do that.
Did we lose Joe?
I had it a minute ago. I lost him.
I think Joe Griffin is gone.
Okay.
I don't see him or hear him.
Well, it'll ping me if he's coming back, so, or when he's coming back.
Looking to see if I've got the mission statement in front of me somewhere.
I have it here.
Okay.
San Miguel Tulsa is dedicated to helping children from challenging environments, regardless of race, nationality, or religion, to achieve academic and personal success through a Lasallian education. We recently took out the non-tuition driven because we do, in fact, ask that they pay tuition, and then that made it opened the door for us to be able to participate in Go for Catholic, because you have to at least have a benchmark of tuition.
But that success seems pretty vague to me. Does it, everybody else?
I guess it does. I don't know how specific we want to be, but I'd entertain.
Well, it seems like our success at fundraising and enabling the school to keep going is based on our success that we can tell our donors.
Mm-hmm.
And, if the board doesn't really know how well the students are doing, how can we pass that information on to donors to get them to see how important and how successful we're doing? Roger, would it be just an overwhelming struggle to put a success plan together for each student?
Individual student success. Well, you'd probably have to have some kind of counselor. I mean, if you had a counselor, that could be a role that they could take on. I don't know who would sit down individually, because we do it as a grade. Although individually, when issues come up, when the success is faltering, then it's not a plan written down. We just call their parents and see what's going on, things like that. I don't know, Jeff. I don't know. I'd have to think about it to see if that would be, because I'm not sure. I mean, we talked to all of them. Where you want to go, where you want to be. We spend a lot of time where you want to go to high school, and I get to be involved in that too. What are your goals? Some of them want to be doctors, things like that. Some of them don't even want to go to high school. They want to go work for their dad and mow lawns, or something along those lines, which there's nothing wrong with that.
Nope.
But I'm just saying, that's our whole goal, is to get them into high school. an individual plan, as far as, I guess what you're asking is, would we document it? I mean, so you
Well,
can
it just
see it?
seems like, I'm sorry, it seems like some kids come in closer to grade level than others. And
Mhm.
so, how can we speed the slower learner, the student that's starting from further behind, to reach maybe equality with, the student that is fairly close to grade level?
Yeah.
Because I think for the individual student, whether they go to high school or not, if we can increase their education, that's part of the real goal, because
Yeah.
that helps that individual student. And I think we have to be able to, tell our fundraisers that, we don't really look at graduation, because, some people aren't going to graduate. But, we took this student from 2 years behind to, equal grade level. And that is a huge achievement in a 3-year process.
Yeah, and I think you got to remember the one thing that really stands out for us is we have such small class size.
Mhm.
And when you have only 12 kids maximum in your classes, and that's one thing you got to be careful if you do increase student population above 24 in a class, that kind of starts defeating the purpose of what the small individual classes that LaSallians produce. So San Miguel, I'm sorry, not LaSalle. But anyway, that's a big selling point right there, 1 to 12 at the max.
Mhm.
And when you have only 12 students, because you may have a student, we have a little guy this year in 8th grade, and he's going to graduate. And Enrique, he couldn't even speak English hardly when he came.
Wow.
I mean, he was very, very limited. And he's grown in the fact that he's in very small class size and has been able to improve upon those things. I guess we could also do individual, as far as you guys hearing stories, about some of these students and everything. We could put some of those things together, because some of them are just remarkable.
I think that
They
would
really
be
are.
important to build relationships in the community with the stories of our kids.
And I think a lot of the fundraising, I think a lot of times when people do become donors, especially individuals, maybe not so much the grantors, it is based on those personal stories, because Caroline has gone and shown them, here's this student who graduated and went to OU and was a, 4.0 and is now is doing whatever. And so I think those individual stories well, I'm going to make an assumption, Caroline. I think those work really well.
They do.
And those are there, and you're always going to use those. I think, though, what we need to look is sort of like that school-wide, because you're always going to have those outliers. You're always going to have that kid who's going to really succeed, and you're always going to have the kid who really fails. But if we can bring everybody up, I think that's where we are. And let me just throw this idea out, because we've talked about recruiting, and then we've talked about setting goals for each student. What about if part of your recruiting or part of your requirement for being admitted is that you fill out what your goals are? And whether that's just being on grade level and reading, I would much rather have a lawn care guy who is literate than a lawn care guy who isn't literate. And so, I mean, some of these things, it doesn't really matter where you go or what you do. There are some goals that you want to achieve. So whether that's being proficient in English, whether that's, whatever the goals are for the student. But then, of course, the family needs to also be aware that San Miguel has goals for each individual student as well. And are they on board with what our goals are as a school? Here's the minimum standard, or here's what we want to see our students do. So we want to know what your goals are for your child, and we want you to understand what our goals are for our student. Does that sound like something that might hit some of the things that we're talking about?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And that's part of it. It does have to be a full buy-in from your whole family.
Mm-hmm.
And because, like you said, 100% come to the teachers' meetings. You have to come. It's not a choice. With the parent-teacher meetings along those lines. And it's interesting too. I think back and Sully might remember this, but we had a real push my years back at CASHA for diversity. And I remember on more than one occasion, they wanted proof. Some of our people wanted, well, is this working? You know, is this really working? All of our financial aid money is going to this. Is this really working? You know, and so, you know,
several people in this call have sat before donors for several years, just like I have. And to me, if I have 15 minutes with a donor, the one thing I want to have on the desk is the age-old dashboard, if you want to call it, with red, yellow, and green. And down the left side are the 15 students in this small class by number, not by name, just a number, and where they are on reading, red, yellow, or green, or in math, red, yellow, and green. And then there's a thing over on the right that just shows the whole class as a group. And if you show them that testing in August, testing in November, testing in March, you've changed a whole bunch of red into at least yellow, if not green. And green means above grade level. Red is below grade level. Yellow is right in the middle. If you can show that, you just raise some money. Now, I hate to be that analytical or blunt about it, but that's the way it works. And obviously those same statistics would be important to, I know we have them. It's a matter of maybe display, but that same set of statistics for 10 minutes in a board meeting is informative to let our board members know that we're doing okay in the 6th grade, but look, these we haven't got as many out of the red and the yellow, or in the 7th grade. You know, we know where to, you get an overview as a board member. So some of it is presentation. I would guess we have the facts, maybe we don't, but if we shouldn't, we should have mileposts through the year. And it's a huge tool with fundraising. If you can show not one kid that was a superstar went to OU, I mean, you do that too, but if you can show you're helping a whole body of kids, whole bunch of kids with our system, then we like you to contribute. And it sounds simple, but we aren't doing as much as well as we should, maybe.
Yeah, no, it's all that's all true. It's exactly true what you're saying. The one thing I caution is that we don't hang our hat just on test scores.
No.
You know, in fact, some of the better students that have gone my time over at CASHA, they didn't test very well. We'd take them in, but they're taking an Anglo test too, that they're having to sit there and think in Spanish to go to English and run out of time before they get there and all that. And some of them, it's all on them. How hard am I going to work when I go there? Yeah. And that's, you know, we don't just randomly try to throw kids at Kelly, try to throw kids at CASHA or all in all. We spend a lot of time thinking, okay, will they make it there? Is this for them? Are they willing to put forth this effort? Are they willing to work how hard it's going to be? Because you know, honestly, I mean, I joke about it, but I don't know if I'd have made it through CASHA. You know, if they wouldn't let me play basketball all the time, I probably wouldn't have went. But I just don't see any value. I mean, there's value in testing, don't get me wrong, because that's what everyone in academia places it on there. But it's important that we just don't hang our hat just on that, because there's so much more that San Miguel does. Because there's a thing you can judge there, and I'm sorry if I'm getting carried away, but there's a thing there where you can judge the confidence of a young man. When Enrique came in, he wouldn't even look me in the eye. You know, I mean, seriously, he would just kind of fade into the wall or whatever, and all that. And, you know, he's getting ready to graduate. Now it's Mr. Carter, how you doing? All this stuff and everything's like that. And I'm just using him as an example. The young ladies, even more so. The confidence that they gain, middle school girls, I mean, you young ladies went through that, but the confidence they gain from 6th grade to 8th grade, that's where you see the success. And that's where you see the confidence when they go, again, I'm not trying to get off track, but but all you're saying, Sully, is true. I mean, the fact that if we can give you guys more tools, you just tell us what you want, okay? And we'll give them to you.
I agree with what you just said, that it's more, there are more measures than just academics. And one of the places I'm coming from, not just that the information on